Hey there, this is Dylan Jerkins from The Last Take Podcast. Make sure you check us out on social media on X at The Last Take 22, capital TLT, Instagram at The Last Take Pod or lowercase, and on YouTube. And subscribe if you haven't already on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I hope you enjoy the show, and of course, go Big Red. You're muted.
Oh, sorry about that, folks.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our reaction live stream from Nebraska's 34-31 win over the Maryland Terrapins. What a win from the Huskers. They did not look good in that second and third quarter once again, but in that fourth quarter, it's the money quarter for the Huskers this year, and they move on to 5-1 on the year, just in the same spot as last year. So now Nebraska has a shortened weekend. Now they head into the Minnesota game next Friday. So, Blake, what are your first reactions to this win?
My first reaction is I can't stop smiling because a win is a win, and we can critique gameplay all we want and the massive issues, but that literally doesn't matter. You win the fourth quarter, you win the last drive, both offensively and defensively. That's all that matters. There is no substitute to winning. I mean, it's just we've been bogged down by losses after losses, losing these last drives and not being able to hold on. And, we've complained about that forever. And Husker fans, I don't know what the reactions yet are for some people, but again, it doesn't matter. You win. We're 5-1, and we're set up for better success because guess what? We don't have Indiana right ahead of us, and we don't have Ohio State also. So Minnesota has been our kryptonite, especially on the road there. It is not going to be a tough game. It's going to be exactly like we saw today. Hopefully less picks, though. I would say that. But it's going to be sloppy, but you have the athletes to get it done. And guess what? Winners breed winners. We've talked about it on this podcast, Dylan. Removing the planks, the bad wood that's been on the team, players that just haven't been accustomed to winning. They don't know that environment of winning. These young players, they're in a culture that has seen success. And it's something that can still keep going on here. It's going to be a tough ask. We have not won back-to-back road games since 2007. But, yeah, those are my initial thoughts. Dylan, I know you have your thoughts as well. What kind of break down the game, Dylan, for us a little bit here and just kind of go through what was going on.
So Nebraska, they started off pretty well. That first drive, you probably want a touchdown, but you turn around on defense, stop them on fourth down, and then you go down and first play, 64-yard touchdown on that tunnel screen to Isaiah Hunter. That's a money play for the Huskers this year, especially going into Hunter, and he takes that 64 yards for a touchdown. And then the Huskers in the second quarter, you get that field goal, 43-yarder. From what I've seen, it was a little windy down there in College Park, so getting a 43-yard field goal. And then Nebraska gets down 14-10, and then you turn around and score two more touchdowns. And then you get a chance to go up 3 scores. Then Nebraska does not do that with not scoring at the end of the half, getting sacked. And that sucks because then you turn around, Maryland gets the ball back in the second half, and they go right down the field, 10 plays, 75 yards in 5 minutes, taking 5 minutes off the clock and scoring a touchdown on the goal line. And then the pick six, man. The interceptions almost cost Nebraska this game. And for a minute there, it looked like they were going to lose the game. But then you turn around in the fourth quarter, and like I said in the intro there, Nebraska just wins the game in the fourth quarter. This is what they've been doing the last 2 weeks. How about that final drive? Despite the 3 interceptions on the day for Dylan, he takes the team down the field. That first play, almost gets sacked, evades the sack, then throws a ball that was a very hard ball to throw. You're throwing across the field, cross body. Find Luke Lindenmeyer, who takes that. It was 22 yards. That just kickstarted all the momentum. And then a couple plays. And then that play to Hunter, I thought for a second in a full game speed that looked like he was down. Did it not to you?
Uh, it's funny, Dylan. So Logan and I were just looking and we're just trying to see what's going on. And I didn't even think I wasn't even looking right at that second. And I just saw Dylan stumble and the ball was just hucked up in the air. And I just had a moment where I was frozen. And then we had a guy wide open. And then going back to, a little bit play before that. So when Dylan had that huge cross the field throw, it lagged for us. And so
Oh no.
we didn't even get to watch that play. And I told Logan right after we saw the replay, I'm glad I didn't see that play live. I'm so glad I didn't see the play live because it looked like it was going to be a disaster. But again, like what you saw Dylan all day long, you see those elite NFL level throws that are just like, huh? And then you see him stare down the route, and that's that first interception especially. I'm going to stare down the route. Here it is. Here it is. Oh, defenders come in and make a play on the ball, and then you throw it and gets picked off right there. Yeah, just it's so weird. I mean, like Dylan, I don't know what it is. I don't want to just put a whole bunch of words out there trying to like find the answer to what's going on because again, he does everything right and then he does a few things wrong and I'm not going to be the one to say put in our freshman. And I even think in that situation, Dylan's still the best playmaker. It doesn't matter who you put out there. Dylan is going to be your playmaker, and that was evident on that final drive. That even while falling down, he can chuck the ball down the field to a wide open receiver. What? You're telling me the guy that stared down his defender was falling over, basically on the ground, and then that ball still went down the field and had enough zip to it to where your wide receiver had an easy ball to catch. I mean, make that make sense.
Without saying looking a little Mahomey there, but kind of
He
did.
did look Mahomey today.
Yeah, how he's been playing this year. But anyways, like it was just you haven't seen this type of drive from a Nebraska offense when the game mattered the most in so long. And I seen a tweet from Evan Bland. This game had a lot of vibes from that 2022 Iowa game, just with the ending of the game, just like on defense, just letting your defense make the play, and they did. Hell of a quarter. Okay, let's talk about Malik Washington for a minute. Hell of a quarterback. He played very well today. I mean, he's played well all season. Like very limited on his turnovers, and he looked really good. And that throw he made on that third down to make it a fourth and short. I don't even know how he got that out with Winery right there in his face, and he still makes that throw. Incredible. So, yeah. What do you think? Obviously, you limit your turnovers, but how do you think Nebraska uses this momentum going into a shortened week?
Well, really, it's just the momentum. Like the momentum aspect is something that you can't. You have to build it, and it's through your plays that you do, and just all you have to do is reflect on and talk about the missed plays that you had that could have been even better. And I think the defense, while they struggled out there, our pass game was going to get tested no matter what. And this year, you're going to see it, especially if you have a team that is so reliant, or defense, excuse me, that's like really reliant on the pass there, and like they're really good at that. It's going to get tested, and there's going to be games where it's going to be hard, especially for how good of a passing team Maryland was. But I think that shows that they're still able to adapt. And again, it kind of really, if your team plays complementary, which I think for the most part they did, for better or for worse, I think, or I think both teams played pretty complementary to where we've got a good comment here coming in. We'll answer that soon. But I think that it shows that, your offense does something, your defense does something, and it was pretty complimentary to end that game. I mean, you can't ask for anything better than your offense going down there and scoring, and your defense holding and shutting them out there right at the end. And you just got to take what you learned and be able to use it for the next short week. And I think a part of that comes from, like I said before, the plays that you almost had right. I think there's a few ones, especially on defense, to where like the third down situations and be smarter with that. But also, if our offense, it's the same situation as really the Michigan State game and the Michigan game, to where if your offense was out there you didn't have those interceptions, and it went down the field, even if it was still, you didn't get points from it. If they're out in the field a little bit longer, your defense is going to be saved by that, because unlike the defense that we've had, the past 2 years, they can't really just go out there every single drive and kind of be able to shut a team down. That just isn't the case. And so yeah, when they're out there a long time, just make sure your offense gets into a rhythm. And it's still interesting. I think there still needs to be questions, Dylan. I don't know about you with, going for it. I think going for it is the right decision. But at some point, you got to figure out what's going to work. And I think that the only play that is really going to work in that situation, whether it's in the goal line or not, moving out the pocket and getting Dylan a little bit more mobile, just a little bit. And it's like what Mahomes, they've done, Andy Reid, to win the Super Bowl, is guess what? You leak out, and then you're able to have at least a few people open. And it's kind of what the plays Dylan does best at. He's being able to improvise and extend, and guess what? He throws to Luke Lindemeyer for a touchdown, or he throws to another guy for a touchdown. It doesn't matter. You're able to extend the play a lot longer than have it just be determined at the line of scrimmage, because you can't entirely win it that way.
Yeah, definitely. Kind of, we're going to talk about this first comment here. So from Mark Diamond, thoughts on Drew Auer being out for the year and Penn State losing again. Well, looks like the train is coming off the tracks for Penn State this year. I mean, I don't even think. I mean, losing to Oregon in double OT, yeah, that sucks. You lose your first big game of the year, but you still need to turn around and win the game the next week, and you lose pretty. That was pretty embarrassing. To
Wisconsin's getting destroyed, by the way. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but they just had a pick six. 17-0 in the first quarter.
Go figure. Wisconsin's pretty bad, and USC got stuck the ball. Okay, but then you turn around, lose to UCLA on the road. Then now you play Northwestern, and you lose. And now you
to Northwestern. I mean, Northwestern is not a good team.
No, by any means.
Like,
I think UCLA is a little better.
Yeah, because UCLA has some pieces. I mean, they still have their offense. Always really should have been kind of up to this caliber. And you got Nico. Nico's still a good quarterback. He just hasn't always had the success around him and hasn't had the right things being told to him in his ear.
Yeah. And you just lose to Northwestern. Preston Stone is their starting quarterback, former SMU quarterback. I mean, good for Northwestern. Good win, but not very good for this Penn State coaching staff that's probably now even more on the hot seat than ever. And you have a tough stretch. You don't have your star quarterback for the rest of the year. That sucks. And we'll see what happens with Penn State later on this year, but especially when Nebraska takes them on later on this year, second to last week of the season. So, yeah. We'll move on to his next comment from Trevor Darnell. Thoughts on the Texas win? I don't know. This one felt it didn't feel obvious on when we recorded our podcast this week on Tuesday. But as the game kind of got closer, I'm like, kind of wish I picked Texas. And, well, guess what? They won. And a lot of it has to do, you're forcing your quarterback in Oklahoma, John Mateer, who was a Heisman candidate, the top front runner until he got injured a couple weeks ago, force him out there, and they didn't look very good today. And they kind of got handled pretty much the entire game. I mean, at least through the second half, just nothing went Oklahoma's way. Brutal loss for Oklahoma in their run in the SEC, but that's what happens in the SEC when you have so many highly ranked teams, and they're so competitive and pretty deep, all things considered. So, what are your thoughts?
I think it's deep really in every conference, and I think it shows that, again, no team is safe from mistakes and errors. And I think that John Mateer, originally not necessarily supposed to come back for this game, is more so that maybe he played. And I think that when you have an injury like that, that really can totally affect, your passing. I think it shows that you don't want to force him to come back, right? And again, I think just rushing him back is what I'm worried about. And they were bound to lose it because, Texas, they're not a completely trash team, right? But it's still to the case to where they're not the elite team that people thought they were going to be or people thought they should be. And they still have probably quite a few more losses left in the schedule. And for Oklahoma, I thought they're going to be good this year, but I did not think that they're obviously going to be top 10 in the country. Good. So we got a few more comments rolling in here. So
thoughts on Indiana's huge win? Yeah, I'm surprised we didn't open with that. Indiana is legit, guys.
I called it. I called it.
And Fernando Mendoza is probably outside of Ty Simpson, is probably our front runner for the Heisman. And they just went on the road. I don't care what you say, Blake. It's still not an easy place to play.
It's not an easy place to play, but Autzen, man, it's a little overrated, not going to lie.
And they took down the Oregon Ducks.
And if it wasn't for that pick six, man, it could have been a different story too. I mean, Mendoza played great, and you had that play, and they were driving down the field and probably going to score there. And their defense does just enough. Like they are controlling these big opponents. Like last year, they really couldn't do when you saw late in the year when you get to Ohio State. I think their defense, really, to me, it shows that they can really compete with anybody. And really allow themselves to last year, right? Dark horse team, but when they played kind of a big opponent, like a really top of the line opponent, it would falter. Well, now your defense can equate to what your offense is doing and hold them down just enough to where your offense is allowed to put that many points up on the board. It doesn't matter. And again, to go into Autzen Stadium and still get that win is very, very impressive.
Yeah. There's a couple of comments on Instagram too, but we'll get to those in a minute. Fancy Mark Burner missed the entire Husker game due to the Husker hockey. I need a quick recap. Well, first, did Husker hockey win? Probably not, but did they win? So comment that. But AKA, basically, it was just the most Nebraska game ever, but they won. So it's a score flipped. That's basically that's pretty much my main takeaway from that is just your typical Nebraska did everything in their power to lose the game and then they won. So
yeah, Dylan also threw either insanely good or insanely bad. And the last one, the last throw, that interception that he had, or that last interception he had, was really on the receiver. But still, at the end of the day, it's going to go down as a pick. And I just don't know what was on the first two interceptions. Like what is Dylan doing on some of the ones, like especially staring down the receiver, and then the next one, it's like those picks aren't like some of the other ones where like Dylan's throwing them, got tipped, or some other ones where some guy completely hops the route, And these picks just felt like bad. Like why do they need to happen,
Mm-hmm. And that pick six, Cortez Mills, he was going to run a dig there, and Dylan thought he was going to come back to the ball, so miscommunication there, and that turns into easy scoring play for Maryland just to take tie the game. So hockey lost 6-4, but the D2 team 6-1. So all right, so one of these comments on Instagram, Jack Lyon says, thoughts on the civil rights movement.
Good class. Good class.
Good class for sure.
Stuff. What was okay? I just want to go back to James Drew Aller going out for the year. Mm-hmm. What was the record? Remember when they played Iowa and lost, and their QB got injured? Starting QB got injured a few years ago.
What year was that?
Was that like Can't remember what year that was.
Yeah, they went. I remember because Nebraska was playing Michigan, right, when they lost to Iowa.
Mhm.
Yeah, Sean Clifford went out. I
What
think.
was the record that year?
Yeah, they lost to Iowa, and then they ended up going 7-6, but they were
Mhm.
undefeated going in.
Okay. Yeah, they're in a worse situation here.
Yeah, so they turned around and lost in that like barn burner with Illinois in that multiple overtime game. They lost 20-18 in that one, then lost on the road at Ohio State, beat Maryland, then lost to Michigan at home, beat Rutgers, and then lost to Michigan State, and then Arkansas in the Outback Bowl, back when it was called the Outback Bowl.
James Franklin, man, it's kind of gone off the rails here in a way it really should never have. In any situation, UCLA, that's one of those freak losses that doesn't happen every day. I'm not going to excuse that, but I think Northwestern is not a worse loss, but like having it back to back like that and losing two in a row just shows that, I mean, your team really does have issues, and now there's really um, nothing left really to build on for the rest of the year. And it's like, how do you rally the troops at this point? You know,
Mhm.
because you're out of it for the Big Ten race. You haven't won a power game against a power team. And also, Dylan, are you a little worried that Matt Rule potentially could go to Penn State if they fire James Franklin?
No,
I'm
not at
down.
all.
I'm a little worried. Not gonna lie.
I'd
I
be
think
more
that is.
worried about losing some coordinators, but I'm not.
Well, yeah, that happens to like if you're a good enough program, the goal is that you should have a coordinator last maybe 2 years. You know.
I just don't see it happening because what Matt Rule has built here already. I think the future trajectory for this program to Penn State's is much better. Pretty
That
much.
I don't know. I don't know about that. I understand where
I'm
you're coming from, Dylan, but
because if
Penn
they
State
lose
though.
Franklin, they lose Franklin. Well, there goes all their recruits probably because I don't even think you should fire him still. But again, you're in that Bo Pelini similar situation to where like yeah, you're winning the games you're supposed to. Other than this year,
And
but
I even
you're
think
losing the big games.
they're even in a bigger spot than like the reason why I don't think they should fire him, but when you have two losses like this, really, and you can't lose these games like this, it doesn't matter what you've kind of done at this point. You got to fire him for a situation like Oklahoma State, right? Why fire him in the middle of the season, whatever? But you can wait to the end of the season and fire him. And for James Franklin, they've been close enough, closer than Nebraska even was. You know, which is why I
Yeah.
think that like they've had the talent. You can't really falter like this. You have no excuses at this point to falter. You made it to the playoffs and you won your first playoff game and was able to extend it a little bit further, right? Their season, but still, Bo Pelini never got it to that level. Like Penn State still has not won the biggest of big, but they've still done enough to where like okay, you can kind of argue um, that they're still really good or whatever. And now, for the case of James Franklin, I mean, like you can't you can't have losses like this. I mean, it's just awful, just awful. Now we got another comment in here.
Are you ready for some Jeff Sims football tonight? I'm ready, Mark. I am ready for the Jeff Sims quarterback masterclass where he tries to Euro step ADB and he fumbles and he throws 3 interceptions and Utah wins by like 3 probably. So I'm
Hey,
so ready.
we got to give Jeff Sims credit though. Last year, he didn't turn the ball over the one game he had to start. So
They did lose
they
to
did
Cincinnati.
lose, but they didn't turn the ball over. That's all that matters.
Yeah. All right, so let's do some recap here on some scores currently with the games here in the early evening slate. So last 2:30, 3 p.m. game here, Arkansas and Tennessee are going down to the wire here. Arkansas, or it's 34-31 Tennessee. Tennessee has the ball at the Arkansas 34 or 35. Currently on ESPN, I believe it's Florida and Texas A&M. They just hit the end of the first quarter. They're tied 14-14. Texas Tech is winning 15-0 over KU. Georgia and Auburn are at 0. Auburn is driving inside the Georgia red zone. And USC is up 7-0 on number 15 Michigan with 6.5 minutes to go in the first quarter. And then the SEC Network game, night game here, the 7 p or just started for the 7 p.m. LSU and South Carolina. They're tied at 0. A couple more bigger games left, like we said. BYU Arizona 5-0 is 4-1, and then the Arizona State Utah game. So what were some other takeaways from the early slates here today? We had Ohio State taking care of business against Illinois on the road. Some other ones like what was it?
Alabama, Missouri.
Ole Miss.
Yes.
Struggling against Washington State. Georgia Tech taking care of business. Colorado beating Iowa State, and Florida State losing too. So what are your thoughts? What are some of your favorite stuff from this the first morning slate before the
Alabama Missouri game is one that really was interesting because I thought it was crazy that Joel Klatt was saying how, like, oh, if you remove the brands, Missouri is clear the better team. And I'm like, okay, what have you kind of like watched this year? Again, outside of that Florida State game, which was the first game of the year, complete trap game for them, and you have the issues like that, right? And it's just like, wow, did that really happen to Alabama? Yeah, it did to start the year. But ever since then, they've controlled it, and their defense, I think, while they let up points, they still hold it to where, like, you don't always have to, like, completely worry about they're going to crumble, and they're going to be able to clutch up and kind of win there late. And Alabama was just able to do enough in that game to stay ahead. And they kind of also let Missouri get a little bit back into that game. But it also shows that, Missouri being 5-0, and you just look at the schedule they played so far, and I will always give a team credit for, going on a 5-game winning streak like that and showing to be pretty decent. But at the end of the day, their first true test was going to be Alabama, because you look at that Missouri game, right, or the Kansas game, and Kansas, they lost by 11, but Kansas had chances in that game to get it closer, to potentially even win, and it kind of, switched up late. Kansas was even leading late in the fourth quarter in that game, and just a meltdown from them. And then the South Carolina game also was like, South Carolina, not that great of a team. You're able to start off SEC play a little bit good, but again, it's South Carolina, and now, losing to Alabama, it's just have to reset everything. And this is going to be an interesting week with the rest of the games, but how the rankings will be. Like, now you got some of these teams having more losses. What's really going to happen? I think Texas
is back in for sure.
Yeah, Texas is back in for sure. Do I love it? No, but they obviously got a huge win over Oklahoma, and I think that really, outside of like your top team from every conference, which what is that for the SEC? Who's the elite top dog for the SEC right now?
I mean, you could say Ole Miss, but they didn't. A little close there with Washington State.
Yes, yeah.
I would not.
But they're 6-0, and I feel like maybe this point last year they probably would have already had a loss in them.
Yeah.
Granted, when you start against Arkansas and Kentucky, that's probably the easiest start you can kind of get into.
And even the Arkansas game didn't really go the greatest either, but they still get the win, and then you turn around and get the LSU win. So, yeah, they have a big game next week on the road at Georgia. That really will tell how good Ole Miss actually is. Yeah, I'm not saying LSU is a bad football team. They for sure are a good team. I'm just not so fully convinced yet with LSU where they stand this year in the SEC. And Ole Miss is the same way. If they beat Georgia, yeah, they're legit. But then they have to follow up with a road test at Oklahoma as well. So back-to-back road games for this Rebels team. We'll see where Lane Kiffin has them, or like how they look on the road.
Another game, Colorado beating Iowa State is a pretty underrated win there. And I think it shows, I don't know if I mentioned this in the podcast or not. I think I did. But Colorado, they had chances to win every single game. And you're kind of wondering, when will they put it together? And they finally were able to do that. And I didn't watch that game, so I don't know how it entirely went down. But at the same time, Iowa State, they're in some big trouble because I don't think they're just as solid as last year, and some big injuries are now starting to rear its head for that team. And the Big 12, what do you know? They cannibalize itself and they start winning over each other. And you're kind of taking out the contenders for that conference besides Texas Tech and maybe Utah if they win tonight.
We're missing one. Currently, number one in the Big 12 standings is Bearcats team we beat week 1.
Yes.
So
yep.
they could be, if they keep rattling off wins, which they did today, or was this today? Or yeah, today against UCF, keep rattling off those wins. They're going to be legit in this Big 12 race. And their schedule ahead isn't too bad. At Oklahoma State, you got a tough game with Baylor. At Utah, so that stretch will be kind of tough. And then you end with BYU and TCU. I mean, it's doable for the Cincinnati team.
It is. And, of course, Pitt winning against Florida State. Florida State.
Did Virginia break them?
I don't know if it's more of that. Like, how do you go from beating Alabama the way you did in dominating fashion? Florida State, the game against Miami, really was out of reach for most of the game, but they still were pretty dang competitive. And you lose that one, and then Virginia, and now this. I mean, it's kind of like meltdown mode. Maybe. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I mean, Pitt's not a team you should be losing to.
Yeah, that Alabama game was probably their Super Bowl because so much.
Start the year off, but how does that not transition to other games though? That's my question. I think maybe the Miami game kind of took a little bit from the state, took a little away from them, but at the same time, just tough.
Now they play Stanford next week on the road. I know it's Stanford. They're not anything to write home about, but cross the country travel could hurt this team pretty badly with how
never easy.
So, what was I going to go next? Talking about something.
Oh, UCLA, of course, winning over Michigan State is another score too. UCLA apparently they figured out that they have a pretty decent quarterback, and their offense should be something that's working because they have some key pieces there.
Yeah, definitely.
What are your thoughts really with that game, and how what is UCLA's outlook now for the rest of the year?
Well, the biggest takeaway is how bad was that coaching staff going into the year, because they looked so incompetent every game they played in. They got obliterated by Utah, and they were just outplayed by UNLV. They lost to New Mexico. And then now you have 2 wins, back-to-back big wins. I mean, you dominated Michigan State. And I really don't think Michigan State's that bad. It's just they did not look good against that UCLA team. And that makes me a little nervous. If you're a Nebraska fan going on the road to UCLA later this year, that's not a guaranteed win. It's not a guaranteed win anyways, but if you're a Husker fan, it doesn't feel as comfortable as it probably did a couple weeks ago. Yeah, and then you're looking at this now, Purdue's up early on Minnesota, 7-0. Minnesota does have the ball,
and USC's about ready to score again, I think.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Or they're getting close to red zone there. Yeah, there's still quite a few games left to play here where obviously could determine a lot. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the AP poll, I think deservedly so. They've gotten a lot of flack this year, and they got to send some type of I don't know, thing to these writers and kind of be like, okay, we're putting down the law. You guys actually kind of got to make change with your picks and kind of actually change the way you pick, because last year they were able to do it. I mean, I really would have thought we would have saw Penn State and Texas still in there because the coaches poll still had it in there. Granted, the coaches poll it can be whatever sometimes, but Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot going on. Big week. We knew it'd be a big week, and it's turned out to be a really big week. Looking
It's
ahead,
big.
though, what else we got going on here? Clemson's up 10 over Boston College. Boston College not having a great year at all this year.
And
Kansas
looks like
State,
Iowa's about to score on Wisconsin. Not looking
Wisconsin's
good for them.
bad. Wisconsin is a really bad football team. K-State beating TCU.
Yeah, I forgot
Big
about that.
12, like we were saying earlier, just eats upon itself. And I don't think K-State is the most awful team in the world. They're pretty competitive, but they're not good enough to win some of those games. But TCU, I'm really like, how is this a game that you lost?
Yeah.
I mean, this
I don't
seemed
know
like
if Kansas State's really that bad. They just had a horrible start to the year.
Yes.
And they're winning the game. I mean, they barely lost to Baylor last game out, and now you get a big win over TCU. So it's huge for them, especially they're not out of it. With how this conference goes, they're not out of it for the Big 12 championship. So teams could lose any week, and especially in the Big 12, like we said. So, all right. Well, I'm sure you got things to do, Blake. I got a couple things to do here tonight. So, thanks for listening to the live stream. We'll
Yep.
probably try to keep doing these as much as we can.
Mhm.
Probably do one next week if we can.
Yep.
With the game being on Friday, so we'll have plenty of comments regardless of what the final score will be. So again, go follow us on Instagram, all lowercase, the Last Take Pod, and on Twitter, the last Take 22 capital TLT, and on YouTube.
Wish we could stream on there, but unfortunately, you have to, with the way it works through StreamYard, you'd have to pay for on Twitter. So if anybody wants to donate money and allow us to do that, because Twitter live streams, one great thing about them is that they pop up and it's so easy for people to click on them, and we get quite a few viewers when we do that. But yeah, just thank you guys for coming in and dropping some questions.
Yeah. Most of the comments on this I'm just not gonna bring up. So
yeah.
So all right. Thanks for watching, and have a good rest of your Saturday.
And
enjoy the win.
Huskers win.
Enjoy the win. Sleep good
Yep.
tonight. We have Nebraska gets a win. Big win.